everybody. Welcome to the PGA DFS First Look Show, and I am thankful and excited to say it is a major week. Finally, it has been quite some time, the longest wait we've had for a major in quite some years. I'm joined this week by Geoff, Ulrich, our buddy Sal. He's got some travel issues with Hurricane Isaiah's out on the East Coast. I don't even know what's going on with all that, but we're going to get him back next week. Geoff, we at least get you. You're here to keep me company for a little while, right?
All right. Yeah. No. I mean, I'm pumped. I mean, obviously coming off WGC, it was a really fun Sunday. I mean, my DFS lineups didn't do anything, but Barracuda even had the Euro event yesterday morning, so which was really profitable for me. I mean, hit Horsfeld there, so it was a fun Sunday. And this one's going to be even better coming up, I think. So
it sure is, and that's the great thing about golf, right? Especially last week, we don't always get this. But we got the WGC, you had Justin Thomas won. You had the Barracuda, where you had Matthias Schwab, which is always a popular guy in these circles. He came top 5, had a chance to win it there on 18, but made bogey instead of birdie. A chance to win it if he had made birdie. And then, of course, we got the Euro. And if you follow the Euro Tour very well, Sam Horsfield first start back 2 weeks ago, top 10, but had so many birdies out there. He put it all together and almost lapped the field before Thomas Dietrich had a good Sunday. So, yeah, I love that about golf. We get so many betting options each week, and even if you have a bad week in one, you can get saved by the other. So really thankful to hear that you had a nice week with Sam Horsfield there, making it, we'll call it back-to-back weeks where you've had a pretty good betting week, and leads us right into our first topic here. And I want to talk about back-to-back. I gave you a quick little note before we came on. It's really hard to do that in golf, and it can also be determined or defined as either going back-to-back weeks and winning or going for the same tournament in back-to-back years. In fact, it's only happened a couple of times since 2016. Geoff, why don't you give us a couple of those, and then I'll round it out on the notes that I gave you there. Some of your favorite players and guys that we've talked about have done it, and the guy that just won is one of the 5 guys that have done it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, for back-to-back is in tournaments back-to-back. Bryson did it, 2018, the playoffs, Northern Trust, Dell. He's on an insane run there. Justin Thomas, 2017, obviously had that run in Hawaii, Tournament of Champions, Sony Open. Day's done it in Florida. Arnold Palmer, match play. Actually, Adam Scott did it in 2016 too. So both the Aussies did it in 2016. Scott did it at the Honda and WGC Classic. And then from an event perspective, guys who won the same one back-to-back, Berger, FedEx St. Jude Classic, I think everyone knows, 16, 17. And then Brooks Koepka, he's done it twice in the majors, man. I mean, absolutely insane. Back-to-back US Opens, back-to-back PGA. So those are the main ones popped out there.
Yeah, and one more was Brendan Todd from 2019. He won the Bermuda, right. And then the next start won the OHL Mayakoba. And what's interesting there is we get one a year. If you look from 2016 and 17, 18 and 19, we've had one. So maybe that'll lead us to Justin Thomas doing it. He won that Tournament of Champions, bounced right back to the Sony and shot 59 in round 1, ended up winning back-to-back weeks. So if there's any golfers that can do it, obviously Justin Thomas is one of them, but it's really hard to do so. Are you going to go back to Justin Thomas because of this? Because we've seen him do it? Or are you going to go off and say, hey, look, it's only happened 5 times in 5 years. It's likely not going to happen this week.
I'm not worried about the back-to-back thing. I do think this is a different setup, though, for Justin Thomas in a few different ways. And I don't think it's going to necessarily trouble him too much, but it's enough to definitely have me lay off him for outright betting. And I'll probably be underweight on DraftKings, which is a really scary proposition right now because he is playing extremely well. I think he's clearly the best player in the world. Although it's close, it's not, I shouldn't say clearly. I do think he's the best player in the world. It's very close among the top 5, but I think Justin Thomas over the last 6 months has distanced himself in that regard. He deserves to have that moniker. But, West Coast venue, different putting surface. I don't know if that's really Justin Thomas's strength. So probably might be setting up as a bit of a scary fade here for me.
Yeah, and the next guy on the board, and having a huge price bump, which of course we'll bring up in our DFS preview coming up later on in the show, but Brooks Koepka, as we can move into our second bullet point here, he was a little maybe too aggressive on 18. He had just come off of 17 and made a 40-foot birdie, giving himself a chance to at least tie Thomas and go into a playoff. was nice about Koepka too, also, is that people weren't really on him, especially over on SuperDraft, the sponsor of our show here, which I'll talk about in a second. He was only about 6% owned and at 1.1x. And if you don't know what I mean by 1.1x, well, perfect time to tell you a little about SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier, which I was just alluding to. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offering contests for all the major sports now, like NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, MMA, and so much more, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. SuperDraft. Sign up for SuperDraft today using promo code Awesemo10, and you get $10 free on your first deposit of 10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of 100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits and more winning. Okay, so back to Brooks Koepka, a little too aggressive. After making that 40-footer on 17, all you got to do is give yourself a chance. You obviously have the roll of the green. I know maybe, Geoff, we break it down for maybe like 60 seconds and talk about a bad decision by a golfer costing him a tournament. We're certainly not the golfer, but it seemed way too an aggressive line for him to take.
It was strange. Now, I didn't double check this. Did he hit 3-wood or driver there?
See, that's a good question. I believe he hit driver. He took the same line that DJ and Spieth took, and Spieth put it in the drink, and DJ cleared it. So one would think a healthy Koepka is able to obviously clear that line that he's taking. Maybe he is not healthy with a driver. Maybe he just didn't hit it well, or maybe it was just a total bad target altogether.
Yeah, it definitely looked like something he could carry, right? Like when he hit it, I knew it was an aggressive line right off the bat, but at the same time, it kind of came off his club a little, I don't know, maybe it was just a little low. Like he might have just hit it a little thin. I think that might have been what happened. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm not going to beat him up too much about it. It is unfortunate he didn't give himself a chance there, but you got to be aggressive in that situation. We've seen Dustin and Brooks be so aggressive off the tee, and it's really paid off for them. So, I mean, I think that the tournament was lost for Brooks on that par 5. I mean, that's the place where he really screwed up, because he didn't have to be that aggressive if he had just made birdie there, right? So, yep. A lot of lucky chances, a lot of lucky things went Justin Thomas's way late in that tournament. I mean, he was really, really lucky on those last 3 holes, and yep. Brooks was the opposite. He was really unlucky, and some poor play by Brooks. So, very interesting end to that event. Thomas probably deserved it just after what happened to him at the work day. And Brooks, still a really positive week for him. I'm sure he'll take a lot away from it.
Yeah, he total bounce back. The ball striking looks to be really good in form. It's funny you mentioned the Justin Thomas's breaks. I mean, he talks about it all the time when he wins. You need stuff like that to happen to you to win a golf tournament on the PGA Tour nowadays. The competition is just too fierce each and every week to have something like that have happen and go your way and ends up, of course, one of the biggest ones was his duck snap hook on, I believe it was 15, that ended up bouncing along the cart path, going into perfect position, which should have been in the water. That's just what happens, and he ends up birdieing the hole.
I looked at the shot tracker on that one, and I thought that can't be right. Like, he didn't actually hit it there, because it's like impossible to get there. Yep. And B, like, why would you take that line? But so lucky. I mean, it's
crazy. It really is. And a couple other WGC notes before we move on to this week here. Bryson DeChambeau, 24 birdies or better on the week, but so many bogeys and doubles, including that one on 18 where he tried to drive a 450-yard par 4. I mean, just maybe a little bit in his own head. Let's not lie about that. Couple of other notes. Matt Fitzpatrick, 10 strokes gained putting on the week. That's insanity. Ches Reavie, 3rd in ball striking as he continues to stay hot. What do you think about those? And maybe if you have a tidbit or two from last week to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Fitzpatrick, that's like with a 3-putt on 17 too. That's pretty crazy. Ches Reavie is definitely back to like that Ches Reavie form we saw him in at the U.S. Open last year. So that's really interesting. A couple of other guys that stood out, like Xander, had a weird week, man. Like, lost 5 strokes on approaches, still finished T6.
Yeah, it's
just insane around the greens. Like, it's just a really not a performance you expect from Xander Schauffele in terms of statistics, right? So I don't know if it's good or bad. It's very interesting, though. Patrick Cantlay was a dude who started terribly, shot 67, 65 on the weekend, like gained around 4.5 strokes on approaches. So that was really interesting. Putted terribly in the opening round, putted a lot better on the weekend as well. So something to consider. And then, a couple other guys like Lowry and Oosthuizen, really solid, really steady, really solid, guys who show up in majors. So both those guys, obviously I've had my issues with Shane Lowry. He actually did come through with me with like a bit of an each way. So that was nice. But not shocked to see Shane Lowry play better because like I said, starting at the Memorial where I know he screwed me, he is playing really well tee to green right now. So
yeah, no, he sure is. Absolutely. That was one of my bets on here last week to look at Shane Lowry. I think it was a 9-1 top 10, just missed that top 5, but still 9-1 was a nice payout.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't pay.
I should have mentioned Tom Lewis too. And that was the long shot guy I brought up.
Yep.
I mean, massive top 20 for me. Had him at top 5 as well. So that was that made my complete week with the Horsfield win and then Tom Lewis doing that. So that was like the biggest thing for me.
What a crazy win. And Tom Lewis actually could have ended up winning the golf tournament if he had just continued that hot putting streak through the best
2 5-footers. And on 16 and 17, he makes those. He's in a playoff, basically. It was, yeah, man. I mean, and I had this conversation with someone else earlier last week just about how talented he is. Dude's won 4 times. Like, he came in cold and blew away a Corn Ferry Tour field. Yep. There's so much talent on that tour. Like, you don't do that without having some ammo in your own arsenal. So Tom Lewis, definitely a guy, to keep an eye on. I think wouldn't be shocked if he broke through on the PGA at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he has the crazy story from when he was like I think it was 2011 or 2012 when he was like 15 or 16 as an amateur at the Open Championship there. And he had a crazy run at where it was supposed to be this year, actually, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Tons of talent, hasn't quite materialized, but at 27 years old, he's still got plenty of time to make some waves here. So, all right, let's move on to our DFS review. And I'll go a little bit quicker in this segment here this week where we're just reviewing quickly some of the important aspects from last week. So first off, before I do, though, it is major week, and we have got a major flash sale going on right now. For the next 30 minutes, you're going to use promo code PGA Championship, and you're going to get 75% off the weekly price. So it's $8.95, 75% off of that, $2.24 for the week. You get to come join myself, Ben Raza, Geoff on the premium side. With that, you're going to get projections from Alex Baker, one of the best in the industry, ownership projections, and so much more. So promo code PGA Championship, flash sale for the next 30 minutes. Take a look at that and jump on it if you're not already a member. A great time to do so. So, okay, PGA Championship on that one as well. So, on the DFS review points, Justin Thomas with 110, Tom Lewis with 109. So, he ended up outscoring Justin Thomas in raw score. Brooks Koepka 105. He also outscored Thomas in raw score. Phil Mickelson out of nowhere, 99 points. Jason Day, 96, a third straight good start for Jay Day. Dustin Johnson, after the withdraw and back-to-back rounds in the 80s, 95 points. Matt Fitzpatrick putted his way to 92 points. Daniel Berger and TPC Southwind continue, 91 points. Webb Simpson, 90. Hunan and Shane Lowry tied for 10th at 89.5. We look at ownership. The chalk hit last week in terms of Justin Thomas. He was the number 1 owned golfer on the slate, and he came in first. Couple of other golfers that the top ownership went to that played good. Xander Schauffele came in 13th. Webb Simpson came in 9th. Dan Berger 8th. Tony Finau. I'm sorry, not Tony Finau. He didn't play good. So not a bad week for the chalk. But when you have Justin Thomas as the highest owned golfer winning the tournament, it is certainly tough to get leverage, especially when he's at 25%. All right, now we're going to go to the half milli maker review. I'd just like to show this lineup quickly. Total ownership, less than 50% last week. That is my type of lineup build. 8 total entries for this user. Campion, he used 49.9 in salary. He skipped everybody. Didn't even have Justin Thomas in here. That's as crazy as this lineup is. But when Brooks Koepka and Tom Lewis outscore Justin Thomas in raw score, that's what happens. So Berger, Johnson, Koepka, Fitzpatrick, Mickelson, and Tom Lewis was the winning lineup. Crazy. Okay, now we're going to go into our own lineups. I'm going to start with Geoff first. Talk to me about your best lineup here last week. Looks like you had a nice comeback from Cantlay. Solid going to Koepka at under 10%. Your Tom Lewis call certainly paid off in the betting. Maybe not quite paid off the way you wanted it to in DraftKings had you would find your way into Justin Thomas instead of Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, just looking at that big lineup that won, obviously, I had Koepka and Lewis in there. Really like the price on Koepka, the ball striking. Lewis, I talked about Lewis all last week. He's just been playing pretty good in his last two starts, and he's just more talented than I think people realized. The rest of it is, again, I liked Patrick Cantlay coming in. I think you were dead on, though. He's still searching for a little bit of consistency with the ball strike, and the wind's still bothering him. Yep. Certainly showed up there early. He did get his game in shape on the weekend, which is really interesting for this week. He could definitely be a player who's too low owned, but last week did not work out well. I went overweight. Just was pretty much, he saved it a little bit, but, this lineup was weighed down by Paul Casey and Tony Finau. Finau was a dude who was just playing so good. I just felt like at 9,100. I liked pairing him over, again, I just could not bring myself to click on Dustin Johnson last week. So I liked pairing him and Koepka. It was the wrong play, obviously. Should have just gone with the pedigree and Johnson and trusted that he was going to bounce back. And then Casey was just a boat anchor. I don't know what's going on with Paul Casey. I don't even care what's going on with Paul Casey anymore. I'm just erasing him from my brain. I don't mind the Sung J M part. I know he fell apart on Sunday, but that price, I'm pretty much always going to play Sung J M. So all in all, yeah, DFS, I faded Justin Thomas last week. So that gives you an idea of how the DFS week went for me. Luckily, I didn't play the bigger buy-ins, so saved myself there. But we'll be back this week, and might be a second week in a row to fade Justin Thomas. So we'll see how that works out. But again, I'm happy that I got myself on Lewis, and Koepka, but fortunately couldn't make anything of it.
Yeah, I had a similar problem with my lineup. Had two guys really cost me. This was my $200 lineup, and I did. This happens from time to time, and it's not like I would have won a ton of money here, but late I switched from Justin Thomas and Joaquin Niemann to Victor Hovland and Patrick Reed. So again, it wouldn't have mattered that much. I would have scored, I think, maybe 50 more points. So it would have brought my lineup from outside of the cash to inside of the cash. Morikawa really impressed me on the weekend. Really bounced back after two not so great starts. His driving accuracy was super impressive, somewhere around 78 or 79%, or at least over 75. So certainly somebody to take a look at this week. His salary has come down quite a bit, which we'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. But really, it was Patrick Reed and Victor Hovland that cost me. The switch really cost me a cash. Jordan Spieth at 76 points. He was fine, just about 10x on terms of value there. And Ches Reavie was a good pick. So again, not a great build. It wasn't Spieth that cost me this week. It was the other two guys. So it can't be quite bad at Spieth here. Now we'll go on to a pro review. And this is where I'll be honest with you. I got a little frustrated as these things happen, and especially in no-cut events. We can start off with I'll talk about my allocations first, as Alex Awesemo Bakers is also on the board. But I had 37% Thomas, a 17% leverage against the field in MME in the 150 entry, and I did 150 entries. And that contest for me was a losing endeavor. It was 750 to buy in. I think I returned about 525. So almost a loss of about 30%, which is just frustrating. But that's what happens when your core only has one, maybe two, if you include Shane Lowry as part of the core, other guys in the top 10. Are you surprised, though, when I tell you that, I had 37% Justin Thomas and ended up losing 20%, 30% in the contest?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and you look, you still had some pretty decent plays down there, like Lowry, Xander, even Spieth was okay. Yep. So it's just, that's the thing with WGC. I would almost say, I'm kind of a proponent of this anyways, but I think if you're going to play these big ones in these big fields, and obviously, 150 laps, 100 laps, whatever, I almost feel like you've got to just pick a couple horses at the top and just go super overweight, because, Justin Thomas is a high-end golfer. He can obviously blow the field away, but, to get, like you said, to get good leverage on him, you almost have to go like well over 50%. So It's tough to do. It's extremely boom or bust, but that's what these WGC weeks are. They're either you have, you're way overweight on the top 2 or 3 players, or you're nothing. It's just it's hard to figure. But I mean, yeah, it's just the WGC weeks, man. They're complete boom or bust. It's you either have who's going off or you don't.
Yeah, we saw Alex kind of up his exposures, right? We've seen him stick kind of around that low 30%. We saw Alex go up to Henrik Stenson and Jason Day over 40%. But with McIlroy in a third of his lineups, that probably hurt his chances at pulling a profit there. He had a nice pick with Christian Benzenhout, was in his core there. He had 10 golfers over 20% owned this week, which again goes to kind of the more strategy of trying to hit on your core golfers in this WGC no cut event. A build that I liked, though, that I was asked to look into for this week as we move into our second pro review is Petty Theft. I actually really liked his allocation when I looked at it. Now, granted, he only had 38 golfers, whereas Alex and I pretty much had everybody in the field. Petty Theft went 57% Casey, 50% Koepka, 38% DJ, 37 Fleetwood, 35 Matsuyama, 35 Simpson, 32 Sungjae, 30 McIlroy, 30 Thomas. So we ended up with like 8 guys above 30%. I think I like that strategy better for no cuts. And I think I'm going to go for that next time. Is that where you're kind of leaning as well? I mean, obviously 57% Casey didn't work out for him, nor did the 62% Gary Woodland for Justin McMahon and the Human Cespedes. But that's what you got to do to try and win, especially in a no cut, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, no, and again, this is pretty much exactly what I was talking about. I like these ones for a no cut a little bit better. It is too bad that Justin had way overweight Thomas, but
yeah, and I reached out to him, and I'm interested to see if he actually broke even for the slate with him being 60% Thomas. I know he had a lot of Woodland, but I'd be interested to see if he ended up breaking even for the slate.
I wouldn't be shocked if we got a couple lineups up there pretty close, just because of so much Thomas. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, I don't even hate going overweight Paul Casey. I wouldn't have hated going overweight Paul Casey at the beginning of last week. So Petty Thefts, I really like that spread for sure.
Yep. Get
those top players up there as much as possible. Yeah. No, this is probably more of what I would do for a WGC.
For sure. All right. Well, that concludes our review of last week, and we get to transition into the 102nd PGA Championship. It is a extremely fun event. Obviously, in terms of the majors, maybe most of the time it's looked upon as like the least favorite because it doesn't really have a unique characteristic that people like. However, for me, becoming used to be a PGA professional myself, not a PGA Touring Pro, two very different things, a PGA professional, there's 20 of people like me playing in this event this week. They're able to qualify. There's a PGA professional tournament, and if you come in the top 20, you qualify to play in this event. So there's 156 players, 20 max players. I think we may have 154 this year. I'm not sure if they're going to add the last 2 or not. 20 PGA professionals, 136 tour pros in the top 70, and ties make the weekend. So, Geoff, nice to see that we're going to get that back, even if it's only for 1 week, and maybe even 50% or more of the PGA Touring pros are going to play all 4 days. That's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it does limit. It obviously limits the field a little bit in terms of DFS perspective. You can pretty much cross those dudes off, but back to the full field event, the cut after Friday. And look, there's going to be a little bit of wind in the forecast here. We're in the coast, Northern California. The weather's a little bit yucky, so could see some wave splits happening too. It's going to be just. I think it's going to be a real event where you really need to just get your players through, and the people who do that probably going to be very live, because it does feel like an event where we're going to see some of the big names bust. I feel like either with wave splits or just, again, TPC Harding Park just playing a little bit tricky. So I'm very excited for this event. I think the course isn't overly difficult, but at the same time, I think there's enough going on here that it's going to wreak at least a little bit of havoc with some people.
Yeah, and it's great. It's a great segue into talking about TPC Harding Park, and let's spend a few minutes on it here, as there was maybe a little bit confusion on my part and maybe a couple of other people's part. So it's held 2 other golf tournaments in the past 15 years, the 2015 WGC Match Play, and then the 2005 WGC, I think it was the American Express back then. I think that's what it was called. In the Match Play in 2015, it played as a par 71, close to 7,200 yards. And in 2005, it played as a par 70, close to 7,100 yards. It is now going to play as a par 70, similar to 2005. They've added 300 to 400 yards of length. One of the fun holes, it's going to be great, is a 250-yard par 3 with not the easiest green complex and 2 bunkers guarding it. It's going to play so over par. It's crazy. And then the easiest hole on the course at the WGC Match Play was the par 5 18th hole, playing at about 520 yards. That's been moved to the 9th hole, playing as the old layout, as I was told, or the original layout. It's going to play as the 9th hole, and it's going to play as 515 yards. So they basically just said, screw it. We're not using it as 18, and we're going to make it just as hard and make it a par 4. Very similar to what Pebble Beach does with their second hole for championships. I think that's going to make the winning score like -8 or -9. I think we're going to get a single-digit winner. It's going to make for a really fun week and really, really tough week. Rory won in 2015, Tiger in 2005. Does that matter to you, Geoff, at all?
No, absolutely not. Different course from 2005 and really a different setup from 2015 as well. You'll see the rough up here a little bit more. I do remember that event from 2015. The rough was up a little bit that year too. So, it's probably not all that dissimilar from then, but like you said, different routing now. I'm really this course is going to get really interesting because like you said, there's tough holes. There's that par 3, there's the long par 4, but there's like the opening hole is really easy. The opening hole looks like a hole Bryson might be able to drive. It's like a 370 straight up, no dog leg or anything, par 4. So that's going to be interesting. You got a drivable par 4 in there as well, but there are some tight dog legs off the tee as well. Reminds me a little bit of like WGC Mexico. And then coming in, they're going to be right off Lake Merced. Some out of bounds coming into play late, not like water hazards, but just really interesting drives. Like the 18th is going to play interesting too. It's a bit of a dog leg, and the carry over Lake Merced off the tee going to be kind of cool to watch. So again, just should be a visually interesting course. Lots of swings. Like guys should be able to go on like little birdie streaks, but also there's going to be like holes where double and triples well into play. So should be lots of swings during the week.
Yeah, so 7,000 square feet for green average size is relatively big in terms of that. So there's going to be a lot of pin positions. If they want to totally test the golfers, they can absolutely hide some of these pins in some of to make the greens a little bit harder, as the greens actually played the easiest in 2005, or one of the easiest on the rotation. However, the fairways, get this, in 2005, granted only 70 players in the field, they hit the fairway 48% of the time from the tee.
Yeah.
So if the average field is hitting the fairway 48% of the time this week, I mean, par could be a good score, I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But it definitely does bring people like maybe Jordan Spieth into it who don't hit the fairway anyway. So it brings everyone to his level rather than him going up a level.
Exactly. Yeah.
Greens in regulation was only 60% because of that. And scrambling, not that easy either. 56% of the time they get up and down. Last thing I want to note about this course is the 2 par 5s. 565, definitely reachable. But the other one is 605. No chance maybe Bryson gets there in 2. Rest of the field's not. So this course is going to play really difficult. I really believe we're going to get a very similar golf tournament to Bethpage Black last year. I know it's another municipal, obviously on the other side of the country, but still, I think that we're going to get a very similar type tournament.
And look, there's supposed to, like I said, there's supposed to be some wind. Like it's not going to be calm all week or anything. And just to hit on that 600-yard par 5 briefly, it's a dog leg with a tight fairway. You've got to kind of go right to left off the tee. It's a hole where you're hoping your guy makes par, not birdie. Realistically, I think it's actually going to play as one of the harder holes of the week. So. I think I kind of predicted like low teens winning score at the start. I'm kind of coming off of that as well after doing more research last night. I think low single digits. And if the wind really gets up or they just go crazy with the pins, it could be even worse. So
60 to 65 degree temperatures is not going to help the ball.
No, it's not going to help either. It's not going to help Tiger, is it?
Certainly not going to help Tiger. And that's a great actually transition into our first collects and bets for the week. But before we do, want to turn your attention to our Facebook and Instagram feeds, as we provide free Awesemo Plus player projections for NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and so much more. So check out the Instagram page, Awesemo_com, and the Facebook page so you can make sure you get your dose of daily free projections. All right, so first clicks and bets. Last week, we just did a quick recap here. I had Shane Lowry. That was a nice little tidbit. You had Tom Lewis. Gary Woodland at 45-1 was your kind of upper pick.
Yeah.
Didn't end up panning out, but now we come to a major. It's in California, not that far away from where he just won the U.S. Open, maybe a little longer than 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, actually. Now that I think about it, COVID just dissipated for months, so we'll let that slide. But Gary Woodland did win the U.S. Open here in California, not too far away. Is he back in your first bets this week, or are you heading elsewhere?
No, he's not going to make it. Woodland, I was hoping would show some more consistency off the tee last week. He didn't do it. Gary is obviously still a top-notch tee to green player, but I feel like there's something going on there off the tee with him. I don't think he's going to find the game in the major championship. And yeah, these are hard to hit fairways, but I don't really want to go down that path. So we've had like an okay week, but to win, no, my first click was actually Oosthuizen this week. And it's a twofold thing. I really like the way he played last week. He could have easily got himself in contention. He just sunk a couple putts on Sunday. He was right there. He had a bogey-free Sunday. And that was with like not starting out well, but his game looked sharp. His off the tee game actually looked really sharp. He's not super long, but he's not super short, and he's hitting fairways again. That's going to play really well this week. And again, it comes down to price. One of the books that I have put him out at 100-1. I actually hit some up at like 70-1 last night, and then when it came out 100-1, I clicked them again. So that was my biggest bet, but I've made a few others since then too.
Yeah, 105-1 Louis Oosthuizen. I think that's a great call. One of the ones that I'm looking at here this week played pretty well last week, just came back. He was in Alex Awesemo Baker, and I took a look at Brick 75's top ownerships. This guy, Henrik Stenson. I mean, I know we haven't seen him in a while, but at 125-1, we're going to get 22 for a top 5 and an 11-1 top 10. This is a tournament where we know if he gets out that 3-wood, because it's not overly long, 7,300 yards. I know it's a par 70, but still, 7,300 yards is not overly long. If he can go and get that fairway metal or even driver, if he decides to pull it out in play, guy is superb with his irons. I just felt like, I know we haven't seen him, but if he's in form, if he's in Hero World Open form or Hero World Challenge that he won, if he's in that type of form, he's easily half this price, 66, maybe, right where Spieth is and Tommy Fleetwood is at 66 and 70-1. So I just felt like 125-1, it may be pretty good value if we're actually getting him in form. Of course, if he's not in form, then 125-1 is not a great price. But he was just my first click. Felt like after seeing him last week, played pretty well for the first time back in form. It was a pretty good bet. Now, top 20s, when we turn our attention to those, I mean, it's a major, so we've got so many different betting options. In fact, you can pick top 20 after round 1 if you really want to.
Yeah.
But how about just for the overall tournament? Did you see any type of a good number there? Obviously, with a full field, there's definitely some numbers out there to take a look at.
So my favorite top 20 right now, and I just want to, there's going to be varying prices, obviously, depending on what book you look at. But for me, it's Emiliano Grillo, man. You talk about Henrik Stenson. I always kind of look at Grillo as like a mini Stenson. The ball striking's on. He can be up there top 10 fairways, can be up there top 10 approaches, and he's actually putted okay lately. Fell apart late last Sunday at the Barracuda, but that's what he does. If he's in contention in a week event like that, he starts making bogeys like that. I'm not worried about that. We're talking about a top 20 here around plus 600, plus 650. I really like that number. I really like the way he's played late. I really like the setup. I think this is a great course for a guy like Grillo, who again, he on a course like this, his fairways gained and stuff like that, from just being accurate, it's going to matter more, I think. So really like him this week on DraftKings as well. But that was my first top 20. And, just going down a little bit, I'm not even going to give another one because that's actually how much I like Grillo.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. One that I saw that was a little bit, you're going to get 7.5-1 on this guy, which Grillo, you got 6-1. I'm looking at DraftKings pricing just to. Yeah, no,
6-1.
It was Rory Sabatini. I mean, I know, granted, he missed the cut at the Memorial after a T17 at workday. But if the guy makes the cut, his top 20 rate is pretty good. 7.5 to 1. I mean, I don't love it. It was just one of a value that I saw. Again, I think if we're looking at just straight top 20, I would probably go more toward the top of the board and look at a guy like Webb Simpson and Patrick Cantlay at plus 120 and plus 150. I think I saw enough out of those guys in the weekend from both of them to say I'd rather bet those two than Ricky Fowler at plus 150, who still looks like he's searching. Granted, he had a really good first couple of rounds. Still looks like he's searching, but I feel like Cantlay and Simpson, they're going to be right there come Sunday, let alone in the top 20. Just feel like some pretty good value there.
I agree. Cantlay and Simpson, you could do both. Or if I had to choose one, I'd probably go Cantlay. But the other dude I did want to go on the same price was Bezaden Hoot. I really like. You brought up Jordan Spieth. How his game, everyone's kind of come down to his level off the tee. Yeah. It's the same with Bezaden, who's got a very similar game to Jordan Spieth. Misses a lot of fairways. Not that great strokes gained off the tee. Great approach. Great putting and around the green. I like him for a top 20 as well. And if you can get him around the same price as Grillo, you can just do both. You hit one, you're well in the profits. So that'll probably be my stake and plan for the top 20s there, Bezaden, Hoot, and Grillo.
Yeah, I think those are two good starts, and we know Bezaden Hoot can absolutely light it up on the greens. So let's go into our DFS, our first reactions. But before we do, let's just talk to you a little bit about NHL is back, and that is our promo code. You're going to get 50% off when you use promo code NHL is back at checkout. That's only $20 for 31 days of Awesemo's leading NHL DFS projections, ownership projections, top stack tools, and so much more, including awesome content from our buddy Vot and Jay Carey, internally, two of the best analysts in the industry for NHL DFS. So come check it out. This offer is valid through August 7th. So our DFS first reactions here. Granted, we have a millionaire maker on DraftKings. We've got a big-time millionaire maker on DraftKings for like $7,000 buy-in. So they got to make sure those fill. They want to make sure lineups are relatively easy to make. No surprise to see 11.3 as the top price here. Brooks Koepka in at 11,000. Rory, then Rahm, DeChambeau, and Schauffele all above 10K. Are you surprised it went to Xander Schauffele as the sixth guy and not Webb Simpson or Tiger Woods or Patrick Cantlay? Or do you think Xander deserves it?
I don't know if he deserves it, but I think, again, with like how the ownership was going, how the odds have been going on Xander. I mean, just seeing how the odds have already dipped on him. He's like around, he's already dipped to like under DJ, like under plus 2,000. Does kind of make sense. I think if he was priced in the low 9K range, he would have been the Uber chalk. Yep. People love Xander because he comes through at the majors. It's that narrative. People know already. He's always T3 at Pebble Beach. He was just down the road last year. And look, it's not like I don't like Xander. He's been killing it off the tee. Great consistency. You want that at this course. So I'm a little surprised because he's well above really quality players like DJ and Cantlay, but I guess it is kind of deserved from that perspective. And I'm kind of glad they did it because the very least it should keep him from being, like I said, the Uber chalk, right? So I think it's actually a good move.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually relate it to Patrick Cantlay of last week was 10,100. Right. Yep. You and I, our first reactions basically were, hey, that's kind of a little pricey as he's still trying to figure it out. He came in at 12% owned because of that. Yeah. I think something similar might happen to Xander. I don't think he gets down to 12% because I think he's coming in a little bit better.
I don't think he'll come anywhere close to 12, but yeah.
I think it has a similar type of feel to it. Bryson DeChambeau, Rahm, Rory, pretty good prices. Koepka was a little bit of a shock to me. Granted, I know it's a major. It's Koepka time. He's the two-time defending champion, but he goes from 9-1 back to 11 in the strongest field we've seen all year. Maybe warranted because if he was in the nines, I would have definitely even been playing him at 11K. I might be okay with Brooks Koepka beating me again. Are you okay with him beating you, or will he be in your lineup for sure?
I haven't quite decided on Koepka yet. I feel like I've probably made my decision on Thomas, but I mean, I'm not even sure. I'm not sure on these top three players yet. It is a big price bump. Like I was not expecting 11K Brooks Koepka. I was expecting him more in the Bryson Rahm range. So, going to have to think about it a little bit. Definitely like the balance approach more right now. It doesn't mean I'm going to have like no Brooks Koepka or I'm just committed to not playing him, but it's a major. He looked good for the most part last week. Putting surface a little bit changed. but played well at Pebble Beach last year. I think right now, if I'm choosing between the top three, I'm probably going to get some Brooks exposure and probably fade Rory and Justin. But again, I'm going to reserve the right to change my mind here because these just came out and I wasn't really expecting Brooks that high.
So Rory McIlroy has been the worst performer out of the best players since the return. It's unquestionable. There's no doubt about it. He doesn't even have a top 10. He's the only guy priced above 10,000 this week that doesn't have a top 10. He got 20% ownership last week, even having no top 10s. When do the masses stop playing him? Is it this week, or do we see them go back to him again? And maybe he pulls it off for him this time, but I got to be honest, signs are not pointing in the up direction for former number one in the world, Rory McIlroy, right now.
I think it is this week, man. I mean, again, the Schauffele love is at its height right now.
Yep.
You got Rahm under there, who I think people want a piece of after he finished well. I mean, it's not like he was terrible. It was only like a couple weeks ago he won, right? Yep. So I think people are still way more bullish on Rahm than Rory right now. I think this is the week where you get just a really, really low percentage on Rory McIlroy because people are going to want to fade both Thomas and Koepka. So I'm not even saying I like Rory, but yeah. You're not going to have that much.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in the Millionaire Maker contest, he could track towards Cantlay's ownership last week, towards that 10% range.
I could see him being lower than that. I know that the pricing's soft, but I just feel like the sentiment now is it's getting to that bottom tier where, he could even pop up at 8. So again, the nice thing is if you're doing 150 lineups, going 20% Rory, you'll probably double the field. So we're kind of close.
Which you haven't been able to say that you can do for the past year. I mean, every start that he's had, it's insane. So let's talk about a couple of the salary bumps and dumps before we give our last kind of picks here. Salary bumps, we just talked about Koepka at 1,900. Phil Mickelson gets 1,000 up. He's the same price as Tommy Fleetwood and Jordan Spieth now. Crazy. Shane Lowry, $900. That's warranted and not surprising that he's now the same price as those guys, as he should be. He's won a major here in the last year or so. Louis Oosthuizen, 800. We talked about both Lowry and Oosthuizen showing up, breaking through in form, no surprise. Brendan Todd, Hurricane Todd, as somebody said before we came on the show. Tough Sunday, but still some love there. $800 on 800. Cam Champ, top 20 last week. He gets an $800 price bump. Ches Reavie, 700. Joel Damon, 700. Justin Thomas, 600. Matt Wallace, 600. Snedeker, 5. Smith, 5. Bradley, 4. And a couple of other guys, 300, 200. And the dumps, Ty Hatton, man, he was I guess I'll say, and if you played him, don't take offense to this, I guess he was the fish play of last week. He comes in $1,700 cheaper. Tony Finau, $1,200. Billy Horschel, $1,100. Tommy Fleetwood, $900. John Rahm, $900 cheaper, maybe back in play this week. Colin Morikawa, also $900 cheaper. He had a really good weekend. Driving accuracy was really good. Victor Hovland also, the young studs are in the mid-8s for their first major, or I should say first major as a pro. I think Morikawa and Hovland, Wolf didn't make it, but Morikawa and Hovland played the U.S. Open last year.
Hovland played really well at the U.S. Open too.
Yeah, he did. So I'm actually not worried about them playing in majors, but interesting to see them priced above guys like Tommy Fleetwood and Jordan Spieth, and even Matt Patrick for that matter, who's $900 cheaper. A couple of other guys at $700 cheaper. So what was the most interesting thing to you between the bumps and the dumps, or maybe just the fact that Hovland and Morikawa are $800 more expensive than Tommy Fleetwood, Jordan Spieth, Shane Lowry, and the alike?
Yeah, I'm not so shocked at Morikawa and Hovland being up in that range. It's more like you said, seeing Fleetwood down where he is.
Yep. Answer too as well. Yep.
Exactly. If Fleetwood had been 8,400 or even 8,700, I wouldn't even have blinked an eye. I mean. Yeah. But to see him go down all of a sudden, below Adam Scott and Justin Rose and Fitzpatrick, very strange because, he didn't play that great. But again, another guy kind of flashed some good form of points. So I'm not sure if this was warranted at all. Definitely he'll push for one of the biggest values. Probably we'll get some really solid ownership, but I'll still probably want a piece. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want a piece of Tommy Fleetwood in a major at that price. I know he's a little bit competitive rust maybe, but maybe he's also fresher, something else that'll factor in, the bad weather, all things that I think just favor Tommy Fleetwood. So that was probably the biggest thing. I think Rahm going down a bit was stuck out. I definitely like that price on Rahm. He's going to be very attractive for me. And, everyone else, not hugely surprising. It's a major, so you're going to see some bumps. Guys like Usti and Lowry going up, well-deserved. Obviously, Lewis after the big week. So rest of the stuff is pretty much what I was considering. But, yeah, that Fleetwood bump was bump down was kind of shocking.
So Tommy Fleetwood, the only thing I'm concerned about with him, the 7,700 price for this, I'm okay with, right? But he lost 3.6 strokes off the tee. He did look like he was a bit erratic. I'm not going to lie. He was on featured coverage for quite a bit, but the putter picked up in round 4. The irons looked good all week. He gained close to 3 strokes with the irons. His around the green game we know is pretty good. So if driving accuracy, like we talked about at the top, the field is going to come down to the worst drivers, that could help Tommy Fleetwood, who's struggling off the tee a little bit this week. So I think he's in play, 7,700. I do like that they put him the same price as Spieth, because I think that probably keeps maybe the ownership on Spieth, at least in the higher dollars, down, which of course everybody knows that I will play until probably the day that I die, or I'm broke, whichever comes first there. So 13 golfers in the mid-range this week, much less than the 20 of last. Then I think we have the strongest 7K section that we've ever had in any tournament. 17 golfers or so, and they are all in play for me. Maybe as we get to the lower, like 7,000, maybe there's a couple that are not. But do you agree with me? Do you think this could be the strongest 7K section we have ever seen?
I mean, I probably said that a lot in the majors, but this is
very true.
It's pretty ridiculous. It feels very ridiculous. And maybe it's just because we've had such like a condensed schedule with lots of dudes, just sort of flashing and seeming so strong. But, again, this low 7K range, you got guys like Tom Lewis, English, Stenson down there, who I agree with your take. I mean, if we even get like 85% Henrik Stenson on this course, a top 20 seems inevitable with that 3-wood. Horschel playing okay. Ches Reavie, it's really strong. You can definitely like go nuts in that range and even just a little bit below it. So definitely strong field, obviously, and just like most majors, though, you're getting really good value on some players there at the low 7Ks.
For sure, yeah. I'm sorry, there's not 17. There's 40 golfers here. That's why it seemed much stronger for me. Sorry about that. I apologize. But what I will say is going from 7,500 up, taking out Matthew Wolff and Brendan Todd from that, or just taking out Matthew Wolff. If you go 7,500 up to 7,900, I bet you there's a major that has happened in the last year and a half or so for most of these guys that they've been priced above 8,000 or 8,500 for some of them. Maybe not Sung J M or Abraham Manser, because they're kind of competing in their first since they've really turned a leaf and been really good. But most of these guys, Justin Rose, Adam Scott, we'd be jumping at a low 8, and here we are in the high 7. So just a ton of ownership going there. I think that DraftKings is definitely a little bit making sure that the general public who are going to play this week, because it's a major, can fill out a lineup rather easy so that they don't have to go and put in Sean McKeel or Zach J. Johnson to fill out their lineups, right? And remember, Zach J. Johnson is one of those PGA professionals playing this week. He is not the regular PGA Tour Zach Johnson, who I believe is still in the field, right? Because he won the Open Championship within 5 years. I believe so. I'm not.
Yeah, 6,500 for real Zach Johnson. Fake Zach Johnson is 6K. So
yes, thank you for clarifying that for me. All right, so 6K golfers, we got like 97 to 100 down there. Ton of choices. Anybody stick out to you on your first look?
Yeah, so my first look was definitely Grillo, because I didn't even know when I woke up this morning. I didn't even know he was in the field because I missed the tweet late last night. So. Yeah. When I was looking through it, that was the first thing that stuck up. I kind of got excited. Definitely like Fratelli under Grillo, though, as well, as another guy who's been playing well. Yep. The guy, I would consider, again, if you're looking to spread a couple more top 20 bets, you could definitely put him kind of in that category. Really solid tee to green player. Might be a little bit sketchier on the greens sometimes, but he's played well of late. So I'd have no problem putting Fratelli in the lineup this week. He'll probably make my player pool in some fashion. You got Michael Thompson and Russell Henley down there at 6,600. I love this course for Russell Henley. His putting it could definitely screw you. So just, if Russell Henley right now is basically a play of you're just betting on his putter showing up at some point. And
for just one round, really, right?
Just for like half the tournament, and you'll have like a really good result, right? So at the same time, that it's consistently not happened. So he's a very risky play, but the upside is immense there. So he sticks out at 6,600. And then I honestly haven't dipped down too much under that. Graham McDowell, West Coast kind of guy. I don't hate just off the top. Sun Kang played well for bits and pieces last week, but I'm not going to go venture down too much below this week. At least I really doubt I will. I don't know. Maybe you can put me on someone under 6,500, but for right now, I'm probably good like in that range.
Yeah, me too, for the most part. I'll give one name to take a look into and think about as the years march on. Not this week, not the weeks, the years march on. And we'll end the show with this, is a 18-year-old from South Korea by the name of Jo Young Kim. And if you haven't heard of him before, he's been around, talked about in the DFS Twitter circles or DFS Golf Twitter circles. Guy has gone on an absolute tear through the Asian Tour. And the cool thing about the PGA Championship, or maybe not so cool thing, depending on the way you look at qualifications, PGA Tour has the right to invite anybody they want for a certain amount of invitations. He got one of these invitations, the 18-year-old. He could be a future star. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. We just don't know enough. I can tell you that he's won a bunch already on the Asian Tour, which has presented some pretty good golfers over the time. So I think that's just maybe a little tidbit for years to come, and maybe he can make the cut over here in San Francisco this week. So, of course, if you're looking for more information, check out the Strategy Show, PGA DFS Strategy Show with Timothy Frank and Ben Raza tomorrow around the same time, around 2:30. And enjoy Major Week, Geoff. Good luck to you, man. I'm really excited about it. Like you said, the golf course looks to be in great condition for a great major. So best of luck to everybody that is watching. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next week, same time. It may not be a major, but it is a FedEx Cup playoff. So cheers, everybody.
It's true.